Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dawnversations. Today's guest is Caroline Helsing. She's an author. She wrote a book about her mom and her mom's life, and it sounds extraordinary. I am going to get it and read it after this episode and talking about it. I know it's just going to be fascinating. And if she ever has kids, I could see her kids writing a book about her. She has accomplished a ton besides writing a book. She's just... Whew, Energizer Bunny. Anyway, I hope you like the episode. If you'd like to reach out, you can find me at any of the socials, Dawnversations Podcast. Otherwise, you can send me a message, dawnversations@gmail.com. All right, guys, here we go. Basically, I feel like you should be retiring age for all the things that you have already accomplished in your life. I don't even know where to start. I feel like we could do like 10 episodes on all the things. So let's go back. Okay, you were born in Hawaii. So jealous of that.
Yeah, it was a really cool place to grow up. I'm very grateful every day. And honestly, super random because my parents were the least likely people to ever even wind up on an island, like, let alone stay there for 36 years. Yeah, it's yes.
Was your dad military?
No, my dad. So I don't. You haven't read the book yet, right? Or
I have not, and I plan to. I love to read. So
okay. So it's the reason I mentioned that is just it's in there. He was my mom and dad were complete opposites. My mom's from New York City. My dad's from like the Midwest. So even them meet. There's everything about them was just very unlikely to even kind of occur, like different interests, different like religions, different like,
oh my gosh, how funny.
but like they totally worked. So they get married in New York, and then they move out west. They just migrated west, and my dad, as he was moving up in his career and everything, like he accepted a position in Arizona, and then he accepted a position in Hawaii, which at the time they're like, oh, what a fun adventure. We'll just go for like, maybe a year or two.
Right.
And then of course, like I said, 36 years later, like, they were still there.
So do you have siblings?
I do. I have one brother, and then I actually have 5 half brothers and sisters from my dad. My dad was married once before he met my mother. So
okay.
Yeah. But it always felt like a very small family, just because, it really, for all intents and purposes, was just my mom and dad and my brother and I, living in Hawaii. And we would see, my other siblings like maybe once, or maybe, or like I was a baby. Remember, you know what I mean? Because it's not like it's not like, an hour drive away.
Right.
On a plane, you're
very secluded.
Yeah, it's a little different. But it was cool. It was a cool place to grow up.
Okay, so where is your dad? Is he alive?
Yeah, he's very much alive. And he's living in Washington now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you get to see him very often?
I do. I now see him at least once or twice a year. I try and I'm actually going up there in a few weeks to go to my niece's wedding. So I'll be seeing him there. And I mean, my father's in his mid 90s, so I want to see him as much as I can. And we're going back to my time. Yeah. Yeah.
Was your mom a lot younger than him?
Just 9 years younger. So, she passed 2 months before her 83rd birthday. Yeah. And that was in 2019. So whatever that would be, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is just crazy. That's not how I pictured it at all. I need to read your book, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, what prompted you to write a book? Because that is a huge undertaking. Did you go to school for journalism?
I call myself a photojournalist, but I also wrote articles and submitted it, and I was kind of like a freelance journalist for the local papers here. And prior to that, I've always loved writing. I've literally that's sort of how I feel like I best express myself. I almost feel like
Yeah.
it's easier in the written word. I just can write my thoughts down, and I've always journaled. And so for me, when my mother passed, because we were so close, it was such a healing way for me to get through, everything.
Yeah, really
And
therapeutic.
such a therapeutic experience. Yeah. And so what sort of started out as me just kind of, writing down stories and journaling and everything. I mean, I do have to say, in the back of my mind, it's so funny. I knew I was going to write a book when I was a little girl.
Oh,
When you just know I didn't know how, I didn't know what it was going to be about, but I didn't think I was, I knew I was.
oh, that's
So
amazing. I
I,
love that.
yeah, and I mean, and I didn't know it was going to be about my mother. But she did have such amazing stories and such an amazing, um, you know, personality and lessons, and it just sort of was a very easy evolution into what became a book. Yeah, and then of course, the timing. I started it just before the pandemic, and so when lockdown, everything happened, I literally just was like, well, what else am I going to do? I'm just going to. I wound up almost treating it like a full-time job, and I had just joined a writers group. Just because I thought, well, I just kind of was for fun and curiosity. And I was approached by one of the gals who said, hey, I really like your writing. Would you like to form a writers group? It was like the last day of class. And I said the same. I was like, oh my gosh, I like love we, we kind of collected a few of the people who were interested in doing it with us. And I have to say, I sort of credit it to being a um, a very strong uh factor in my continuing to write. Like, it was like subconsciously I knew someone was waiting for me to submit something that week, even though it didn't matter. But we would write a piece, and everybody was doing something different. They were working on one girl was working on a blog. I
Right.
I had my my mother's thing, which kind of began to develop into like a book. And another girl was sort of like writing a funny cookbook. We all had our thing. And I just very much looked up to their talents, and I felt like I learned so much from them. And we were all just very supportive, and it was almost like a like a support group in a way too for me, because I
Yeah.
talking about, yeah. And when you are not able to see anyone, you know what I mean? It was just nice to
Yes.
kind of have this group of girls that, I knew I would be able to, I couldn't talk to a therapist. I couldn't, well, I guess I could have, virtually, but it was just kind of a just perfect confluence of events.
Right. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fated, it seems
Get
like.
through it.
Did you were the meetings that you guys had, were those already online before everything shut down, or were you guys still meeting even though everything shut down?
I think we had maybe two meetings in person, where I was the only one driving up to Los Angeles. I live in Orange County, and all the other girls were living in LA. So that in itself was like, oh, but
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
so happy to still do it. And like this one of the times my car broke down. It was just like, it was never an easy thing for me.
Right. Yeah.
But so when March came, one of the girls had said, should we just do this on Zoom? And at the time, it was sort of a foreign thing. Oh, well, we're not in person. And I was like, yep. I love it. Absolutely, I'm there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Do you still stay in touch with those women?
We do just sort of through social media. We are not doing our group anymore. It's funny. It's so weird. It actually kind of ended, sort of fizzled out a little bit right when I finished the book. The girls were starting to not, write, but we would still
Yeah.
sort of meet up and chat. I was the one sort of submitting things. It's just weird. So I'd say it was good timing, I guess, for me. But yeah, we still chat here and there. I still kind of hear what they're doing. So that's kind of nice. Meet some
That
folks.
is really crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that it seems
I
like
don't
it
think my
was
mother had
fated
a hand in it. Yeah.
yeah, like just fated. Here's your friends. They're going to help you get this book going. And then
Yeah.
you're
It's
done
really
writing the
strange.
book and then they kind of fizzle away. That's
Yeah.
just nuts. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It has everything you need all in one place. So Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Makes it super simple. When you're hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and others. And it has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, it's totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So yeah, writing about your mom. Now, was she telling you stories like all when you were growing up, or was it after you were grown she was telling
Um,
you?
it was stories that I just remembered overhearing. She loved to, she was always talking about her youth growing up in New York City. I mean, she was, like I said, she was from New York, and she, she was just this enigmatic sort of, presence. And I don't know if you're familiar with, like Schitt's Creek, kind of like
Yeah.
almost like she had that sort of just like a sprinkle of a little bit of a Moira, just kind of how she dressed very flamboyantly, and then like a Holly Golightly, like she was very layered, very, sort of almost like an innocence, but like the way she looked at the world, but like this, you know, like through rose-colored glasses, like anything was sort of possible in her youth, and from that I kind of by osmosis, became that way myself. And so I think that's why, how you said, I feel like you should have probably retired by now or whatever, like, all the things you've done. I do feel like I kind of have reinvented myself every few years, I from being, moving to Los Angeles when I started kind of acting in Honolulu, and then that's a natural progression, so you live in LA, and then I started a manufacturing company like making dog clothes, and and I'm like, that was a crazy transition, and then writer, photographer, so I do feel like I have, yeah,
9 lives.
very different, yeah, it's so weird. And I that was one thing I wrote about. I'm like, why did I feel like I had the freedom? Is it I just felt like, I don't she always stressed experience to me. It wasn't like you need to have stability. It was always like experience everything. So maybe it was a subconscious thing of like, what's that like? Let me
Oh
see if I
my
can do it. I don't
gosh.
know.
It's inspiring though, I mean, like you clearly don't see obstacles. You just say,
Well,
okay, well,
I will say I'm normal. I do see obstacles. And I am absolutely fearful about, things like other people, but I do try and push through it anyway. So it's like I still try and do it even if I'm scared.
that's
And I do
amazing.
get scared. Yeah. So I will, because for me it's more scary to look back and go, shoot, I never tried. That to me is the scariest thing ever.
Yeah.
To never have tried
Yeah,
something.
because you don't know unless you
Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
Is your
Like
brother the
fear of
same
regret.
way?
Um, and no, my brother is the sweetest. I always say to know him is to love him. He has special needs. And yeah, but he's just, just so smart, and he's always reading, and just a sweetheart. But no, he's very, like he's a homebody, and he lives with my family up in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of how because you're married, how your husband, like, he was probably just like, whoa, what is this girl? Like, you're just like, I do this and I do this and I
He
do.
was so he was so cute on our first date. What did he say? He said something like, "You're like the most interesting man in the world." You know that, like,
Oh,
that, like, thing, but a girl or something like that. And he's just cute. Just comes up with these cute things. Yeah, he's awesome. He really allows me to, kind of flourish and, like, like whatever you want to do, and I'm going to support you, and in your endeavors. So yeah, I am grateful for that. He's sort of my grounding, um force.
Yeah, you need that. You
Yeah,
need
I
somebody
do.
that'll ground you like, okay, you need to take some breaths before
Yeah.
you
Or just, yeah,
um
just like, okay, it's really, like maybe look at something this way or whatever. Like I'm currently writing a piece for I want to submit something to oh, I shouldn't even say until it's happening, but I don't know. I'll just a publication and about just writing essays, sort of like an excerpt from the book, but written a slightly different way, trying to
mhm.
get eyeballs on it. Yeah. And I literally have probably, as most writers can relate, but like for nights and nights on end, just like agonized over a particular title. And it's like it's just a title, but I'm like, with this
Yeah, you want it to grab attention.
yeah,
You want
so
it to be the
he
title.
yeah. So
That's
he
funny.
understands.
So, okay, so your book is about your mom, and she like lived vicariously through Hollywood actresses. She didn't she like show up at parties?
Well, so okay, so there was a moment in her life where she was really good friends with Ron Galella, who was the original paparazzi. If you like really trace it back, he was Andy Warhol's favorite photographer. He shot everyone, like Matt Brando and Onassis, and like just everyone. And so
Wow.
starting out, I think they probably dated for a short time, but they were friends. And he, when he was just a kid, like he was starting out, he would hear about these Hollywood movie premieres, and the movie premieres happening around the city. And of course, he would, go there because he wanted to take pictures of whatever, Ava Gardner, Sinatra, whatever, whoever was there. And they kind of would go as a team because together they were able to go in. And so she sort of helped him, go in, and he, and he was so. I called him the Bonnie and Clyde of party crashing, only the only thing done was by a photographer and his camera. So, but she would like hide his camera under the table and then sashay off to look for Dean Martin, whomever. And she had this obnoxious amount of confidence. So she had no problem sitting next to, whomever, and just striking up a conversation. And, yeah, so that was sort of like, a chunk of her youth, living in New York City. Yeah, yeah. I
Oh my gosh,
have a lot
that's
of stories about that, but
fascinating.
yeah, yeah. And so just like through these stories, it was like she taught me the importance of confidence. And do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like you need to do this. She was never the mother that was like you should do this or that. It was always like I just kind of observed. Um,
Yeah. Just watching her would be inspiring just to see that nothing holds her back.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's awesome. So your dad then, was he like more shy and like
Yeah,
a
I didn't hear
hermit
you.
type?
Right, yeah. Well, not shy. I will take that back. He was just very, like when she entered a room, you knew. And my father was more of like the calm, almost like my husband a little bit, like where how like opposites, like I'm a little bit more maybe extroverted and he's introvert. I think that was sort of like their dynamic as well. And he had like the stable job, and he had, like, and she was like almost like, she was a professional dancer, she was a model, she was like we're kind of similar a little bit in that aspect. Like those are the, things that we were attracted to, the shiny.
Yeah.
But to have like a stable partner is really important because, I have to say, like my husband's like, just it's like they enable you to be who you should be.
Yeah.
And so,
Letting you have that room to
yeah,
expand and do whatever it is that you want to do.
yeah. So like, but like just to illustrate some of the differences, like so, like I mentioned, she was a professional dancer. She worked as a showgirl in South Beach for the Lou Walters review. Lou Walters is Barbara Walters' father, and he had like the Ziegfeld Follies type review. And she worked, she dances a showgirl down there. And my father grew up, it was more like like that of Footloose, like that kind of a
Yeah,
like
where is he from in the
areas. He's from Indiana. So
Okay.
like a little town in Indiana, and just completely different upbringing. But he was just, I think, fascinated by her. She was unlike any woman he'd ever kind of been around, and she him, like she was used to like, her first boyfriend was Jerry Orbach's actually, like dad, like
Oh, jeez.
yeah. And I mean, so she was used to kind of dating, like musicians and like in that era. I don't know if any would probably maybe like well, I see, I know these people just because growing up with my mother, but like, I feel like a lot of my peers would not
Right.
like the Treniers are, or I don't know, like Billy Daniels, who made, who made Old Black Magic, that song Old
Right.
Magic famous. So she like, she went out with these guys and she like
Jeez.
yeah.
How did they meet?
My father and her? Oh, this was
Yeah.
an interesting story. Okay, so, um, my my father worked in advertising, and there was a salesman who approached him about a product that he never should have approached him. It was a totally, like, the wrong, department. So, I love how stories like this it's like, you
Yes,
never should
me
have met.
too.
But anyway, my father got wrangled into meeting with him somehow, and the guy was trying to sell him of all things, stick-on beauty marks. Like
Oh my
basically like
gosh.
dots to your face. Yeah, because at the time, Marilyn Monroe and whoever,
Yes.
they all had, so women would like draw a little like with their mascara wands and stuff, like, my mother said
Yes.
she would do that. And so anyway, so he came up with this product, stick on beauty marks. And my dad was working in pharmaceuticals. But somehow this guy got channeled to him. And I don't know if somehow my father got wrangled into like meeting with him. So they met up at a cafe, in a restaurant cafe in New York City. Um, and halfway, the story goes, halfway through their meeting, in comes my mother. She was a model at the time, her and another gal. Um, and they were, modeling the beauty marks. Came up to the table, and like, it was just like, and she always sort of talked like this,
Did
She's
she
like,
really?
yeah, because she was just kind of, like I said, a character. She loved Marilyn, and she's like, I'm gonna talk like this. I'm like, I mean, that was just her first, their first meet, and it just
Yeah.
was, sparks kind of flew. And then he gave her his card, and 2 weeks later she calls him up and says, do you want to ask me out on a date? But he was just like, what?
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, and the rest is history, as they say.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to read this book. It just sounds awesome. Okay, so tell me, I mean, I've got to focus on your mom here. What happened? Did she die of old age?
She, it's so funny. I used to call her the bionic woman, because she had so many near misses with, death, really.
Mhm.
She was on United, during 9/11, going to New York City. She was, almost on a plane that was hijacked. There's just stories
Gee.
I write about. She had cancer. She had a liver transplant. Like, she's had so many things that, you kind of always think, oh, she'll bounce back. I don't know. Especially if it's something like a fall. And that's what ultimately,
Oh.
her demise. Yeah, she fell. And I think what it is she never had the healthiest of bodies. And she, like I say, she kind of grew up on jello and pretzels. Like, she had the worst appetite, like the worst diet. She
Yeah.
never ate healthy. And so, I think if somebody who was had a healthier base, had an injury or fell or what, would kind of bounce back, quicker. And she
Hmm.
just couldn't. And it was just, she developed edema and like, she was just in and out of hospitals and like infections. And like, the doctors were saying like basically her body was sort of eating away at itself, like the muscles were atrophied. And she was in so much pain. And it was just really hard. I mean, they had mentioned hospice like months and months and months and months before that actually even happened. We were holding on for a while. My father was taking care of her, and it was a miserable time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So it was a fall, and they say at that age when you fall, it's really true. It's like, oh, it's just it sometimes is the catalyst for someone going downhill. And unfortunately that was her situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
But like you said, she dodged so many bullets. I just feel
Yeah.
like what a legacy, what a life she lived.
Yeah.
I mean, she lived a full life that
She she did. She also kind of lived different lives, like her youth in New York City, and then like living on in Hawaii for almost 40 years, which was a complete, change for her.
oh my gosh, an
She was like
island compared to New York City. I
she
can't even.
she was like a fish out of water. I mean, completely just like, I mean, she'd shop in sequins in a grocery store if she could. Like she's just like, but she found her groove, and so like I write about that. It's just like funny things, like just ways she kind of like found her way through life. I mean, she somehow would like get invited to all these art gallery parties, and we would go to them, but basically what she would do is she'd just mess with the salespeople. She'd be like, yeah, we're building a home in Kahala and we have so much empty wall space, and they'd be like, we hear you're building a house in Kahala. And he's like, I am. Like funny now, when you look back on it, we can laugh on it, but it's like, oh my goodness, like, uh,
The
but
imagination.
yeah.
So do you have another book in your pocket? Are you going to try and write another book?
Well, so right now I'm finishing up the audio version. I really I'm working on that with a friend of mine, and I actually decided to try and do this myself, like I normally try and figure out things on my own. Oh my god! And then I discover what I get myself into. So I wound up recording the whole thing in our downstairs walk-in closet because the acoustics are amazing. Something about the coats and the I don't know,
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
And then I had some friends like drop off some like soundproofing boarding, so that kind of helped a little bit. But like just it was I've tried different rooms in the house, and like it really sounds like a studio, I feel like. So we're working on just edits right now, and it's taking forever. So who knows when that'll be. But I'm working on that, and then I am actually working on a screenplay, a movie, because a friend of mine, she's an actress, and she was like, I really think that this could be something, and I know
Yeah.
people never, I mean, anyway. So, but the more we talked about it, we kind of see it as a series. So it'll be one of the two. It might be a series. So I'm kind of working on that now. So yes, I have other ideas, but I feel like Unapologetic is not done yet. Like there's still more that it can be.
Oh my gosh, how
So
fascinating.
it's her. It's like character driven and story driven. But yeah, so we'll see. It is definitely keeping me busy.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like it. I guess I didn't realize. So when you write a book, it doesn't automatically just get recorded.
Oh my goodness, no. And I you a lot of people, if they're writers, maybe they don't have the performing background or whatever, so they'll hire someone. And I will say they'll hire a recording studio and all of that, and that would have been a much quicker route, I will tell you. But I was like, well, I want to do this. I have some performing background, and it was I will say it. I'm so proud of it. I can't wait for it to be released. But then I
Oh,
have a friend who's a sound engineer, and basically I'm at the mercy of my friend who is, helping me with edits, because it's almost there. And I'd like to see if I can add music and all of that. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Oh my
That's
gosh, it'll be
so
really
exciting.
I don't like to disappoint anyone, but we'll see. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. And yeah, I'm just kind of excited about what this can be. But also, even if it ends here with the book, I am grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the way it allowed me to process um, her life and her death. And I feel like it's a I don't know. I've been told that it's been inspiring to others, to kind of like get back to relationships with family members that were once estranged. I mean, I hear a lot of stories, like maybe other person I know, his mother's, unfortunately struggling with Alzheimer's and dementia, and and to see them kind of changing and reading this book, like somehow help them through it. And so that to me, like, is success, just hearing how it's helped others. So even if it just ends there, just knowing that, like, if it's helped others, that to me
Oh
is
my gosh, yes. Because I'm sure you didn't even, well, you might have thought of that. I shouldn't speak for you, but I'm sure, you're just writing these funny, fun stories, and probably not thinking, wow, this could really impact a lot of people to the
yeah.
point that they would want to reconnect with family members and stuff. I mean,
Absolutely. I
that's
didn't write with
huge
that intention. And so for that to be the like, side effect of
byproduct.
it was
Yeah.
byproduct. Yeah, that was cool. That's the
I love that. Gosh, it just seems like there's a huge door that's about to open for you. I'm so excited for you.
you. Thank
Oh,
you.
so okay, so promote the book so that people can go get it and order it. It sounds fascinating.
You. Well, okay, thank you. Yeah, it's called Unapologetic Tales of the Original Party Crasher. um, and yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on barnesandnoble.com. It's in the ebook form, paperback, large print. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and then maybe on a screen here soon. Who knows?
And then you could see photographs, videos, which has been cool for people. They said, I've been told to kind of like, as they're reading the book, they'll check out the Instagram, and they'll be like, oh my god, I'm on that piece, and this is the the photo and the video that went with so it's kind of cool.
That's
I'm,
awesome. Yeah, I could totally see that. Just as you're reading it, like even just watch. I don't know if you watch The Crown. Just watching it, and then it's like, oh, I'd go Google and see,
yeah,
what the real, sister looked like, and just,
exactly.
oh,
Yeah,
it's so
it's
cool
kinda
to put
cool.
an actual face, especially to such a character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Thank
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you spending time with me today so we could talk. I love this story. I'm definitely going to get the book and read it, and then I'll message you and let you know all my thoughts
Oh,
about
yeah,
it.
please do.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely be in touch, and thank you again so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. So fun chatting with you.
Yeah, you too. All right, we'll talk later. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yo.